For decades, we have measured ultra-processed foods by their calorie count. The logic was simple. These foods provide energy without nutrition, and consuming this empty fuel leads to weight gain. Systems biology reveals a more aggressive mechanism. When industrial food components interact with the gut, they trigger metaflammation, a state of chronic, low-grade immune activation that persists regardless of a person's weight. This sustained inflammatory state disrupts the delicate signaling required for hormonal and neurological health. Current research identifies this specific pathway as a contributing factor in the development of metabolic syndrome, PCOS, endometriosis, and chronic anxiety. This process is visible at the microscopic border wall located inside the colon. This diagram shows the three-tiered architecture of the intestinal lining: a protective layer of beneficial bacteria, a thick barrier of mucus, and a base of tightly packed cells. Chronic metabolic disease follows a predictable sequence of biological instructions. When we consume industrial food code, the body executes a programmed inflammatory response that eventually dismantles this internal architecture. The microbiome forms our first line of defense. This ecosystem of trillions of bacteria depends entirely on complex dietary fiber for its survival. When we eat whole plants, these bacteria ferment the fiber to produce a critical signaling molecule called butyrate. Microbes pump out glowing butyrate molecules, the primary fuel for intestinal wall cells to maintain a physical seal. Ultra-processed foods contain almost zero fiber. When cut off, the microbial community withers. Butyrate production ceases, leaving intestinal cells without their essential fuel. By removing fiber from the diet, we starve the microbial protectors that manage our systemic health. Beneath the bacteria sits the second line of defense, a thick, viscous mucus layer. This gel serves as a physical buffer, separating the microbes from the sensitive human tissue of the intestinal wall. To improve texture and shelf life, manufacturers add industrial emulsifiers to ultra-processed foods. Inside the gut, these emulsifiers act like biological detergents. This simulation shows how the chemical solvent aggressively dissolves the protective gel, stripping away the mucus shield and exposing naked cells beneath. Without this mucus layer, surviving bacteria press directly against the unprotected human tissue of the intestinal wall. The final physical barrier is held together by tight junctions. These are the biological seals that glue our intestinal cells into a single watertight wall. Deprived of butyrate and their mucus shield, the cells cannot maintain structure. Tight junctions fracture and snap open, creating physical gaps. This is leaky gut. Toxic LPS fragments spill through the cracks, plunging directly into the bloodstream beneath. Immune sensors in the blood instantly detect this breach. They recognize the LPS as a sign of active infection. These sensors trigger a massive systemic alarm, flooding the body with inflammatory chemicals to neutralize the threat. The resulting inflammation is the immune system's accurate response to a massive gut-borne breach caused by the modern diet. This diagram traces the systemic fallout. This state is called metabolic endotoxemia, where inflammation travels through the blood, turning healthy vessels a glowing orange as it reaches the liver, brain, and ovaries. Once the inflammation becomes systemic, it blocks insulin receptors, stalls mitochondrial energy production, and disrupts hormone recycling. While industrial food can dismantle this ecosystem, whole food contains the information necessary to rebuild it. Reintroducing diverse dietary fibers and fermented foods provides the exact nutrients needed to restart butyrate production and restore microbial diversity. With steady fuel, the mucus shield regrows and tight junctions seal shut. As the barrier is secured, the systemic alarm finally turns off. Food is more than a source of energy. It is biological code that programs the structural integrity and resilience of the human body.